I want to talk about something that everyone should pay attention to. And we're calling this, could it be a hangover or something more serious? Because a 21-year-old college student thought she was simply hungover with a headache and nausea after being out drinking. But it turns out she actually had meningitis. By the time she realized something wasn't right, she got to the hospital. The swelling in her brain was so bad, doctors were unable to save her. And one of the saddest things about meningitis is the symptoms can develop so very quickly. You may think you just have the flu or you're hungover, and it can go from feeling like the flu to being deadly in a matter of hours in some cases. And unfortunately, I can see how a student would think, well, I'm just hungover, because sometimes when you're hungover, you feel like you have the flu.
Yeah, and I think in this case, the keys are, if you are trying to take pain medicine like over-the-counter Advil or Tylenol and it's not working, it's just getting worse and worse. Or certainly if you develop any sensitivity to light, if your neck starts to feel stiff, and in this case in meningitis, if you start to develop a rash, I mean, something doesn't seem quite right, you do need to seek help right away.
This is such a typical story. It's that time of year. That age group is back in college, the dorms, living together. It's very contagious, bacterial meningitis. There is a vaccine that works very well against bacterial meningitis that is available, that if you're in that, I would recommend strongly, if you're going to college, going away like that, living in that type of setting, then you really should be getting that vaccine.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also, this is one that can be very difficult to diagnose, and you could actually go to the doctor and think you have the flu, they think you have the flu, you're sent home, and then, you know, the big one that you mentioned in medicine, we call it nuchal rigidity, obviously, but if you develop neck stiffness and these symptoms you've never had with just the run-of-the-mill flu, doctors can miss meningitis all the time, because really the gold standard to diagnose is to do a lumbar puncture, and obviously we can't lumbar puncture every single person. In popular parlance, we'll call it a spinal tap, but you can't do that on every single person who walks in the door with flu-like symptoms. So it can be missed. You know, there are times where people will go home and symptoms continue to evolve, but the sooner you can get antibiotics on board, much more likely you are to survive. And that it can literally be the difference. 30 minutes of waiting to get antibiotics versus not can be a matter of life and death.
And it's probably worth mentioning that there are two causes of meningitis. There are viral cases, which are much more common in people under the age of 5, like little kids. And then there are bacterial cases, which tend to occur in young adults under the age of 20. So important, though, because if you have a bacterial meningitis, it's about 600 to 1,000 cases a year, but 10 to 15% of those cases are fatal. So that's an astounding number when you think about it.
And meningococcal meningitis, that's the one where luckily there is an effective vaccine. A lot of the the viral cases usually you feel bad, much like the flu, and you eventually get better. But this is just one to know, particularly if you're a parent, kids going off to college. Let them know the warning signs so they can be on the lookout. Sometimes not just for themselves, but if they notice a friend is acting awkwardly, confused with all these other symptoms, get them to the hospital. More to come.